Welcome, everyone. Let's just jump right into it. Today, we're diving into a truly fascinating explainer about a lone student who took on a massive, highly engineered industry and completely revolutionized it. Honestly, just by taking a walk. We're looking at the story of Tom Doak. He's an American golf course architect who had the guts to look backward in order to push his entire field forward. Now, whether you're a diehard golf fan or just someone who appreciates incredible design and the power of challenging the status quo, you're going to love this. It is an absolute masterclass in observation and restraint. So let's explore exactly how a curious young guy changed the entire landscape of modern golf. The best golf holes aren't invented, they're discovered. I want you to just sit with that quote for a second. It is the absolute anchor of Tom Doak's entire philosophy, and it represents a massive paradigm shift. You see, throughout a lot of modern golf history, architecture just followed technology. As equipment got better, architects tried to invent these new, massive, hyper-engineered challenges. They literally looked at a piece of land as a blank canvas to completely paint over. But Doak, he looked at the land and believed the masterpiece was already hidden in the dirt, just waiting to be uncovered. Think of it as a real David versus Goliath situation. On one hand, you had the modern era. This was all about bulldozers, heavy engineering, moving absolute truckloads of earth, and effectively forcing nature to obey the architect's blueprint. It was expensive and, frankly, it was excessive. But then you have Doak's vision. And what was his primary tool? Walking. Seriously, before sketching a single green, he would spend hours just walking the property. It was all about restraint. He wanted to disturb the landscape the least amount possible. It was a philosophy of listening to nature rather than shouting over it. To really get inside his head and understand how he saw the world, imagine you're standing on a windswept Scottish hillside. There are no signs pointing toward a future million-dollar clubhouse. There are no brightly colored flags marking where the green should go. No survey stakes at all. It's just rolling dunes, native grasses swaying in the breeze, and maybe the sound of distant waves. Most people standing there would just see empty land, right? But Tom Doak saw pure possibility. He imagined revealing what had always been there. That unique ability to see a golf course perfectly hidden within wild nature, that is exactly what defined his genius. Now, this remarkable vision didn't happen overnight, but it did happen pretty incredibly fast. Born in Connecticut in 1961, Doak found himself studying landscape architecture at Cornell University in the 1980s, but he quickly realized something crucial. Textbooks can only teach you so much. So in the early 80s, armed with sketch pads and just an insatiable curiosity, he traveled extensively across the UK to study legendary courses. By 1988, he shook up the whole industry by publishing The Confidential Guide to Golf Courses, and literally just a year later, in 1989, he established his own firm, Renaissance Golf Design. In less than a decade, he went from a curious university student to a major industry disruptor.
Section 1. Nature as the Architect, Studying the Masters.
When Doak decided the classroom wasn't cutting it, he took his notebooks directly to the historic fairways of Scotland, England, and Ireland. Every famous course offered another chapter, and every round of golf became a new lecture. But here's the thing. He didn't just admire famous holes, and he definitely didn't want to just copy them. He wanted to crack their code and study their underlying principles. From Alistair Mackenzie, he learned that strategy and enjoyment absolutely have to coexist. From Harry Colt, he saw the pure elegance of a natural routing. From MacDonald and Rayner, he learned how to thoughtfully adapt classic hole concepts to totally different landscapes. But his biggest takeaway came from the ancient links courses themselves. Nature is without a doubt the finest architect. The oldest courses didn't depend on dramatic earthmoving. They just embraced the contours that were already naturally there. Which brings us to perhaps the most profound question in modern course design. Rather than asking, hey, what can I build here? Tom Doak asks, what is the land already trying to become? He studies the ridges, he studies the hollows, the valleys, the prevailing winds, even the way the sunlight moves across the terrain at different times of day. Instead of asking the land to conform to his blueprint evolves entirely from the land itself. The architect stops being a dictator to the environment and instead becomes a humble student of the terrain. So this philosophy ultimately forces us to ask a really critical question. What makes a golf course truly memorable? Is it massive manufactured waterfalls? Is it towering artificial mounds? Doak realized that no, it isn't. He noticed that golfers remembered certain holes long after they forgot their scores because of the carefully shaped relationship between the golfer, the natural landscape, and the strategy of the game. He wanted to champion this idea, and he was about to do it in a way that totally shocked the traditionalists. Most young architects would take all those brilliant observations from their travels and quietly file them away in a drawer somewhere. Not Doak. He wrote a book about them. In 1988, he published The Confidential Guide to Golf Courses. And wow, it was an incredibly honest, often highly provocative evaluation of global courses. He praised courses that embraced their natural landscapes, and he ruthlessly questioned designs that relied on unnecessary ornamentation. It was a shock to the system. Some people were surprised, others were deeply, deeply offended. But suddenly, everyone was listening. It proved he wasn't afraid to express unconventional ideas, and it firmly established him as a powerful intellectual voice in the game. Section 2. Designing the Golf Renaissance. Having established his bold philosophy and writing, it was time to actually prove it in the dirt. When Doak founded Renaissance Golf Design in 1989, his minimalist philosophy translated directly into world-class design metrics. If you were to look at an architect's scorecard for his work, it's basically 5 stars across the board for natural design, strategic variety, walking experience, and environmental stewardship. Moving less earth actually demanded a way better understanding of the property. Because he wasn't relying on bulldozers to manufacture excitement, he had to rely on pure strategy and natural movement. The landscape remained the undisputed star of the show. His core concepts were beautifully simple. Let nature create the strategy. Move as little earth as possible. Courses should look like they've quietly existed for centuries, and avoid expensive manufactured decoration. Now, you can imagine, at first, developers really doubted this. They wondered if these understated, quiet courses could actually compete with the lavish, loud resort developments popping up in the late 20th century. But Doak held his ground. He argued that golfers didn't need manufactured excitement because the landscape already provided it. And you know what? His quiet confidence won over clients who weren't just hiring an architect. They were investing in a completely transformative philosophy. We're going to wrap up our explainer today with this really resonant thought. The architect's greatest achievement is knowing when to leave the land alone. It so perfectly summarizes Tom Doak's legacy. In a busy, modern world that constantly tells us we need to build bigger, engineer more, and force our will onto our surroundings, Doak's philosophy is a masterclass in the absolute power of restraint. Sometimes, the most creative thing you can possibly do is simply pay attention, respect what is already there, and know when to take a step back. So, what does this mean for us? Well, I challenge you to look for the power of restraint in your own world today. Where can you achieve more by doing a little bit less? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.